So we're going to talk about a mod that you should not do, and that is this. So these pegs you can buy on Amazon for about 13 bucks. They're in John Angel's links on his blog. They're really cool. They can be used for a couple different things, but basically you put them on the back of your bike for people to either put their feet on when they are riding with you, or you can use them for a more aggressive stance when you're riding by yourself. And so what's cool about these is that they actually flex or move basically upwards and then come right back to this position. And so what's nice about this is that when your bike hits the ground, there's actually something there to kind of have it bounce off of. I mean, this thing is wicked strong. And the only reason I know that is because someone on the Facebook groups said that when their bike hit the ground, these pegs actually saved their bike to some degree. Of course not, completely so, but they at least bounced off of this. I mean, these things are wicked strong. So the typical peg that I think of when I think about motorcycles actually does the opposite of this. So this one stays straight. The ones that I'm familiar with actually stay up like this, and so the rider has to kind of push them down themselves, which I like more. I don't want something jutting out of my bike just like this. I want these things up until someone's foot pushes down on them and keeps them straight like this. So I was toying around with this and was actually able to get this to happen through some really gross modifications that I made to this thing. I mean, I beat it to hell. You can't really see, which is nice. I'll replace this bolt with something that I buy from Home Depot. This was just kind of a test, but it does actually work. It's hard to do with one hand, but so you'll see here, if I just push down, and then I can get it straight like that. And like I said, this is really hard to do, but you can see that I'm getting that flex, and if I can't even get it with one hand. But anyways, that is the mod that I'm going to show you guys how to do today. But definitely do it at your own risk. It takes a lot of work, and it's pretty ugly looking. I'm going to spray this with black matte spray paint or maybe gloss once I'm done, just to cover up all of this metal gunk that I tore to pieces. All right, so first step is to get this pin out, and I did so through just taking a pair of square pliers just like this and pushing kind of on the open spot right here. The pin, or this like locking pin, did shoot out, so make sure you have like a little bit of a backdrop for it to catch, and then this pin will actually just drop right out. All right, so pin is out, and I got this little piece off by just taking my pliers and like opening them just so they could slip through here and then pushing down. And I did that while it was at this angle, so I was able to push down my pliers coming down on top of this little pin. And then the pin just pops right out. It's really just a fulcrum for the whole device, so nothing happens when it comes out. It's not gonna like explode at you. But the actual spring is loaded in there, so be kind of careful taking it out. I mean, it's really not that big of a deal, and then you just gotta kind of pull it out, and boom, that's done. All right, so let's talk about why I'm using a skateboard bolt instead of the stock pin that this peg came with. So when I tried to orient this like this, the stock pin was not letting my peg actually flex outward. It was too tight, so that's why I had to use this. It's a little bit smaller. I tried to drill a hole, or a bigger hole, and you can see mine's even off there. That's the tension coming from the spring, why it's not centering that hole. So you want a bolt that's actually smaller so that I can move around it. So that's why I used that. You're gonna also want the shorty bolt to actually attach this to your bike. I don't know, oh yeah, this. This is the bolt that it comes with to attach it to your bike, but this is far too long. So you're gonna need these shorty bolts. You can find them on John Angel's links. All right, so now moving on to the difference between the actual pegs and how I was able to orient it this way. So I'm gonna pop this out and show you some of the modifications I had to make to this. So normally, you can see there's a hole there. The original hole was right here, this one. I drilled one here stupidly thinking that would change things, obviously did not. So this is the original hole. They also have some milling on the side here so that you get some clearance for this spring to attach onto this fulcrum and then actually fit inside here because it's quite a tight squeeze. So you'll see on mine, in order to make that happen, I had to file a ton. So I filed a bunch there, and then I drilled a hole pretty far down. This allowed for more clearance. So this is, I don't know, oh, this is a ball burr. I had a drill bit laying around somewhere that I had to drill probably about, I don't know, 5 millimeters in, so maybe down to there, in order to get this thing to basically be flush, you see? So this is really a better measurement actually. So once you get to the kind of curve in this spring, you know you're good to go. So moving on from this fulcrum bit to the actual peg itself, there are two modifications that you need to make here. One being shaving away a ton of material here. So I went at this with a file for probably 5 or 10 minutes. I think this is aluminum, so it tears down pretty easy. There's no real great way to measure this, unfortunately. I mean, if I really wanted to, I probably could, but I don't care that much. So yeah, I had to take this down, and this will definitely take some fitting. I'm gonna go ahead and do it on this tonight. And then you also need to make a file or a cut basically into the actual corners, because you can see here on the one that I have not modified, these corners are super sharp. And so for for the fulcrum to actually move around that corner, you need it to be at least somewhat round. And so that's why I went ahead and filed this into a semi-round shape. I still wanted some like locking type feeling, so when whoever's sitting on the back there hits that spot, they know that they've kind of locked in the pedal in this way. Because if you had it round all the way, you wouldn't really know. So that's the cuts that I made. All right, so this is me actually filing into this piece, trying to match it as closely as I can to this. This is the first one I did, so it actually is really ugly. This one's gonna be a lot nicer looking. See, I got a cleaner edge there. Only got a little bit more work to do on this. I used the bastard file, which is a super coarse file. Removes a lot of material really quickly. All right, so now I'm gonna start drilling my hole. I honestly just eyeballed it. I thought it was pretty close to where I started there, but I'm using a, let's see, so this is called a caliper. Super awesome tool, makes it really easy to measure things. So the drill bit that I'm using is almost exactly the size of the the spring. So it's about a 1.6 millimeter drill bit. It's probably more like 1.8. It's maybe a little bigger, but bigger is totally fine in this situation. Remember, you really want to test your spring to make sure that it's flush with the area that you just filed away. So this is not flush. You can see the spring doesn't go all the way into the hole. You really want it to touch that curve, basically. All right, so hole is drilled in this guy, and the spring sits flush. Now it's time to file these edges. They're quite sharp down into these kind of semi circles. So it's time to put this thing back together. And I spent a comical amount of time trying to figure out how the hell to get this thing back together. I was, so sorry, before I actually show you how I was troubleshooting, this part of the spring, the short part, just plugs into this little hole right here, easy enough. And then you insert that into the spring or into the peg and kind of twist it around, and it'll find its way through and ultimately end up like that. And so I stupidly spent probably an hour last night yanking on this thing to try and like put it here and try and pull the spring to that hole like a fool. And I was just about to quit, and then I just was fiddling with it, and I was like, oh my god, I can just pull this part up and put it next to it, kind of like right here, get it in the hole like that, and just bring it over and then push it down in. And so boom, there it is. And you can see it's putting some tension in, so that's why I had to use the skateboard bolt, which will eventually trade out. Then you don't even have to put your bolt in right now to test it actually. And so it's all back together, it's all good, and it's got some tension on it, which is great. And those edges we filed are gonna allow it to rotate around that, that edge there. And so this one probably needs a bit more, oh, nope, actually looks like it's good. So it's, I think I need some more, I need to remove some more material right here on this edge so that it comes around it a little bit easier, because you can see it's not really like sitting flush just like it should. So I will work on that, but generally this one is pretty much done. Thanks for watching.